Welcome back, all you kings, queens, and in-betweens, to another special here brought to you by the This Week in Weeb podcast. And I am once again joined by Felty Bear Miguel.
Hello.
Today, we thought that it would be a relevant discussion to give our first impressions on the first two episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, brought to you by Netflix.
Netflix, when you're ready to sponsor us, just let us know. We are ready to go.
Absolutely. I know you got a lot of money just burning a hole in your pocket, and you're ready to give out those sponsorships.
Making random shows left and right. They can throw about $100 our way. That's fine.
They're taking on the endeavor of remaking all of One Piece, and that's a long endeavor. So I'm sure they can manage.
But from what you told me, it's not going to be as long as it should be, but it's still going to be fairly long.
Yes, they're supposedly cutting stuff out and crap. I'm not really up on that one, so we won't be doing an episode on that quite yet.
Not yet. Not anytime soon.
But I think we'll start off with general thoughts on the first two episodes, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty afterwards. We'll let you know when we're about to get into that and talk about specific things. So, Miguel, what do you think about the first two episodes in a general sense, like your first impressions?
Right now, I don't want to be like an on the fence kind of person. I want to try and give you some more straight shooting kind of thing, because I'm all about that straight shot, definitive answers, which I'm absolutely not. But so far, after these first two episodes, I'm invested enough and curious enough to definitely see how it ends. I think what I've seen so far is kind of what I expected. It's good, not great, not horrible. But again, my bar was very low, not simply because of what we had with the Avatar movie before, and not just because of Netflix adaptations, but more so because, as we mentioned in one of our past episodes, check it out if you haven't yet, certain things are just hard to translate well, especially when you have something that's such an overwhelming number of things. Like I worry for the One Piece fans, how they're going to translate those million of episodes into something that's going to be, 10 episodes long per season. And in this case, they took, I'm assuming they're taking at least first book or the second book or something into 8 episodes. So off the bat, they're going to cut out a lot of stuff. And from this, like I said, my bar is pretty low, and they barely met the bar, like in a good way. I will say, I did enjoy it. Again, we're only 2 episodes in, so definitely want to see where it goes, but I'm not expecting like a huge turnaround surprise right now. I don't see that in the cards.
So I'm in a similar vein as what you're saying. From a general sense, I like the pacing of episode 1 more than I like the pacing of episode 2. So I wanted to see if you got the thing that I mentioned before you watched episode 2 and contrasting the two of them. Do you want to venture a guess?
I'll venture a guess. I will say episode, no, I'm still at a loss. I feel like certain things were consistent between the 2 episodes. So if there was something specific, I may have just gone over my head. Episode 1 was definitely, I think, much more intense, we'll say. Episode 2 was definitely a bit more lighthearted. Not to say that it was as silly as the show was, but it's definitely a bit more lighthearted. But yeah, what was I supposed to get? What did I miss again?
So episode 1 covered 3 episodes of the original show.
Okay.
It covered episode 1, 2, and 3. It covered The Boy in the Ice. I don't remember the name of the second episode. And then the Southern Air Temple.
Okay.
We're all wrapped up into that one episode. Episode 2 covered 1 episode. It covered Kyoshi Island. That was it. It was 1 episode.
Okay.
Because I was expecting it to cover Kyoshi Island, Omashu, or King of Omashu, and then whatever the one after that is, which I don't remember off the top of my head.
No, that's a good point.
So if they're going to do the pacing of episode 2 throughout the rest of the show, we're not getting there. If they're going to do the pacing of episode 1, we get there.
Okay.
So before the show started airing, I was kind of sitting there doing a calculation, like there's 22 to 24 episodes? I think 24 episodes in the original season 1 of the show. Factor in commercials and things like that. It comes out to like 22 to 24 minutes each, and they were turning it into 8-hour-long episodes. The second episode was also only 48 minutes.
Yes.
So they took essentially a episode that was originally 24 minutes and doubled its length in the live action to make it an entire 48-minute episode. So going into the series, I was like, okay, if we do the pace of about 3 episodes of the show per each of the 8 episodes at an hour long, that would be there about the same amount of time, about as 1 season of the original show.
Okay.
So we'd be good in terms of pacing. I'm a little worried after seeing episode 2, what's going to have to get cut out to make up for the fact that they just cut what could have been 2 extra episodes in there. I understand kind of why they focused on that one, because, it introduces a new character, and they introduced like the first new real setting that we hadn't seen, and I can kind of understand it, but I'm a little worried about the pace. In terms of the tone, I was talking to Elaine while we were watching it, and one of her complaints is that Aang isn't goofy enough.
Okay.
And it comes off as probably the weakest performance of the show is the one who plays Aang, because, he's like 12. I don't know how old he is, but I think he's 12.
He's a kid. Okay.
And he struggles a little bit in those scenes where he's kind of got to hold his own with the other actors on the screen. And I was a little worried that they were going to lean too much into the goofiness of the show, because then that looks really bad in live action. Like, you can only be so goofy. I think when they showed him doing the whole air thing, I don't want to get into details before we get into spoilers.
No, but it's in the trailer. Right?
Yeah, when they show him on the air ball, and he's moving around and he crashes into the thing from the trailer, that was a good scene. Him interacting with all the kids and stuff. But if you lean too much into the goofiness, then you run into that problem where that girl got all of that hate in live action Cowboy Bebop when they showed her in the one scene as Ed, and it came off really cringy. Yeah. Because they tried to make her like a cartoon character in live action, and that was rough.
As a quick derailment, if you watch some of the YouTube or Netflix things of the Cowboy Bebop series, they had a whole like featurette about the actress, or technically I'll say actor because I think they're non-binary technically, the person who plays Ed. And they're saying how they're so excited, such a big role, they want to do it, they put so much into it, they did research, something else. And then when you watch the series, they had about 20 seconds worth of thing, and then they were done.
It was an end credit scene.
And I was so disappointed because I was really I thought they were gonna bring Ed in earlier and do more with the character instead of just a person's over the top impression of the cartoon, of the anime.
It was rough. I don't know how much if that's how they were gonna do it, I don't know how much of that I could have taken, because it was kind of hard to watch.
Yeah.
But you could have easily gone that way with Aang, because he is goofy and he is acting like a kid, and that's okay because he is a kid, and it's fine in a Nickelodeon show because it's for kids, even though there's a lot of stuff that you can get out of it as an adult. It was made on Nickelodeon for kids, so you'd get away with that goofiness in the show, and I think there's an extent that you can go to in live action before it gets cringy.
Well, and as we talked about last time, I think that's one of the things about these adaptations, where when you take an adaptation of something that is an animated thing, it lends itself to be okay, to be silly, to be anime, to be exaggerated, to have the principal character's eyes book out and everything else, because it's part of that world, that fantasy universe. But when you have something now it's live action, you can't just explain that stuff away without it coming off as cringy, as ridiculous, like, well, that seems out of place, because they're trying to ground it, but you can't ground certain things.
Yeah, it's harder to extend suspend disbelief for the audience if it's in live action versus animated.
Exactly. So I think there are certain things that I knew off the bat they were going to cut out, and some of the things that when I realized afterwards that they had cut out, I was like, well, that makes sense. Like, talking about the first episode, I just kind of went over what things they had cut out, what things they had maybe just condensed. And one of the first things was how much he was having fun with the little water tribe kids when he first came out.
They don't have the penguin surfing and stuff.
Just done. Which, again, in the grand scheme of things, I think certain things will always be kind of cut out.
Probably wouldn't have looked good.
No, just let it go. So certain things can be cut out, and certain things are just like, you know what, we can continue on with this to kind of get to the meat of it. When I thought about it and I watched that first episode, I thought, you know what, I don't mind. We've been in this kind of era of shows having much smaller episodes per season. Growing up
seems to have become the thing. 8 to 10,
which is fine when you kind of not force, but when you have then the writers focus on the plot, the storyline, the character development, and with that, because you can't allow yourself
have filler.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every minute is important. One of the great things of the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, that they were these shorter seasons, but every episode hit. There was not one episode like you can skip it. No, you need that episode. Compared to, as like I said, I'm watching it now, Smallville, there are entire seasons that you can kind of miss out the whole middle section of it. Watch the first episode, watch the season finale, you got in the gist of what happened.
I mean, that's network television in general, and there's a lot of great examples of a lot of the CW shows that I've watched, like any of the DC ones like Flash and Arrow and stuff, where honestly there are 6 or 7 plot relevant episodes out of the 24, 26 episodes that they have, because they're trying to extend it out over a whole season of television. It's got to last months, and they just throw in crap that it's like, oh my God. And when you're watching it week by week, like if you're not binge watching it, you're actually watching it on television, waiting week by week, it's painful when you have 3 episodes in a row that's not relevant.
Especially when it goes on those hiatuses,
like sweeps time, when it goes like on the break.
You wait like a few months to come back for a filler episode, like, oh my God, this is torture. So when you get to something like the Avatar, where now they're gonna cut out a lot of that filler stuff, fine. But the stuff they crammed in, it's felt how crammed in it is. The amount of exposition that's given at every other step, it's like, oh man. I kind of wish they would have just let it go out a little bit longer, so it's not trying to throw everything at you at once as a new person. I think the reason why I missed what you wanted me to see was because I'm trying my best to judge this series on its own merits and not try to focus as much on what it was supposed to be, because when you have that kind of juxtaposition, more things stand out that I think in another case you'd be more willing to forgive or let go. But you're absolutely right. I think in terms of numbers of episodes, they took 3 major episodes, which even the first few episodes, in all fairness, the first episode of the series, while it's an important episode, it's rocky. Like the ride's a little bit off, fine. So now
that was most of the first Netflix episode, was that first episode of the animated show.
Exactly. And I don't want to speak bad of a kid. He's a kid. I know at his age, I don't know how old he is. I've never been that good of an actor. I will never be that good of an actor as he is at his current age.
That's like when people are like, "Oh, this kid's a terrible actor." It's like, well, what are you gonna do, Mr. Random Person on Twitter? Do you know how to do this? If you were in a performance with other people that know acting and have been acting for a while, because there's some seasoned actors in this show that have been around for a long time. Are you gonna be perfect in these scenes with these people?
Where's your Netflix show? Yeah. But as you've taught me to kind of understand and be more aware of, as consumers, we are allowed our opinions. And I will say, as a consumer, as a person who enjoys media and is aware where these things are coming from, in the first episode, what did bug me as a small nitpick, there are multiple instances where
Is this going to be a specific thing that we need for spoilers?
I don't think so.
I think, hold it for 1 second. I think we're good to just give our non-spoiler general thing. Should people watch this?
If you are a fan of Avatar and want something to compare it to, absolutely. If you just want like a fun show that you just want to put on, maybe giggle and laugh at, definitely. If you're looking for the beginning of the
Citizen
Netflix
Kane.
Exactly. This is not going to be a new era of Netflix adaptations. Go back to One Piece. What can I say? Like it was my bar.
I honestly think this was better than. I only watched 1 episode of One Piece.
I did watch all of One Piece.
I think that
I watched all One Piece, the Netflix, just because I put it on the background as a binge, and I just like, let me just keep going. But again, I even saw that. I think for me, I enjoyed it a bit more because I don't know the source material. I've never read the manga. I've never watched the anime. For me, this is all how it's supposed to be. So I don't realize what stuff they've cut out. I don't realize what stuff is out of place. It's fine. But for Avatar, certain things obviously did stand out more because I do have that kind of background information. I want to give it as a enjoy it for what it is kind of thing. And again, we're only 2 episodes in, so just enjoy it for what it is. If you have a certain bar, and honestly, this can apply to anything. If you're going to have a certain bar set up for a show or something, like, you know what, this thing that I haven't seen yet, it's going to be amazing. Relax. Yeah. I mean, let's just enjoy for what it is.
In my opinion, I think you should give this a shot. I'm enjoying it so far. I am coming at it from a critical lens in comparison to like the original source material, the movie that was made, and from that kind of a critical experience because we make content about it. So we have to kind of approach it not as the average audience member, but we're not doing that to crap on it. We're doing that because we want to give you guys an honest review of our opinion and like the pluses and minuses. But in terms of an overall experience, I definitely think you should check it out. If you think that it's a little too silly after the first episode, I think that that's fair. If it's not your cup of tea, if you're somebody who's going in expecting something a little bit more serious, there is silliness in it.
The first episode was pretty intense.
It was pretty intense, like, but there's silliness in the characters.
I would be very surprised. Let me rephrase that. I'd be moderately surprised if somebody watched that first episode and said, this is too silly for me. Because we'll talk about the spoiler section, but there are things that happened that first episode where I'm like, this is going to be for kids.
Yeah. we'll get into it in a minute. I just think there's a certain level of, there's a lot of child acting in it. Yes. And a lot of people just can't stand child acting. When a predominant amount of the cast is child actors. Zuko, Katara, Sokka, and Aang are all young actors.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that can drag something down in your experience if you just don't like dealing with that. Like the first Harry Potter movie, amazingly casted, but the child acting was very bad. Like,
well, see, I
will not hear you defending the child acting in the first Harry Potter movie.
I will. Well, Daniel Radcliffe was, I think, even the first one was pretty good.
It's okay.
I think the fact that if you go into a show or a movie and there are child actors and you know there are child actors, but you go in, I hate child actors. What are you doing? It's like if I watch the Super Bowl, but I just hate football. Then why are you watching this? What are you doing? So I agree. I think sometimes child actors are, they're children. They're kind of figuring out their own emotions as is. Now there are some child actors that are amazing, but it's not that frequent. But I think to properly enjoy things, you do have to kind of give it some leeway for that. If you do come into it off the bat with that mindset of child actors drag down the show, then why are you watching it?
Yeah, I mean, it is predominantly child actors,
exactly,
so you kind of have to understand that going in.
But not a spoiler, but if you don't like child actors and you don't like CGI, don't go watch Avatar.
The average viewer, though, I'm enjoying it and I recommend it.
Absolutely.
Give it a shot. I mean, you don't have to watch the whole thing all in one clip. So watch the first couple episodes and you pretty much have the experience that you can expect, probably.
Yes.
I don't imagine it's going to be this tremendous rocket through the moon or a dig into the ground after episode 2, but there could be.
Yeah.
We don't know. Moving into spoilers.
Do
you want to just pick up on your other thought that I stopped you on?
Yes. So I don't think it's doable, but I appreciate that we said in case it is considered that way, which is there are multiple instances of having the actor in Netflix in a scene where he has to cry multiple times, and each time he does the crying face, but there are no tears.
So common with people, though.
And I'm like, it's such an emotional scene and nothing. And the one scene that and again, now that we're talking about spoilers, that I thought was that we're gonna have at least just one solitary dramatic tear was after that first time when he gets to the air temple and everything else, and he calms down to go to the Avatar state, and he's in Katara's arms. I thought, okay, that's gonna be it. And again, he's doing that crying face and nothing.
Just do a CGI tear, honestly. I'll take it.
And then the second episode, when after he's buried Monkey Atso, same thing. He's there, his eyes are welling up. I'm like, oh, this is it. Nothing.
We got a tear out of Appa's eye. Why can't we get a tear out of Aang's eye?
It bugged me so much because the kid is acting his butt off. He's earning that Netflix check as much as he can, but they couldn't just say hold, put the little drops in, go. they just so now he's just making weird faces at you. They could have had him like the fake sound, like something just fine. But like I said, they focus on this kid's face, so now he's like the majority of the screen and just making a weird face at you. And it's just for me, that took me out of it. And I'm trying. I want to give them a shot. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, not because they've earned it off the bat, and not because of sources, because even though sources, I know some of the drama stuff that went on in the background, not a lot, and probably what I'm going to say is mostly incorrect, but because again, I enjoy to try my best to give something a shot, at least give the benefit of the doubt. Let's see where you go, and then go from there. But when they have that close-up shots of his face and he's making these pained, anguished faces and nothing, it feels even more fake.
Yeah, it feels weird. Like you just cut it out, or just move it, like you said, where they're showing the back of his head or something. In terms of that scene from the Southern Air Temple, so that's episode 3 in the show. And in this, they talk to him about the fact that all of the airbenders were killed in the Water Tribe village, which he doesn't learn until he goes to the Southern Air Temple. He goes there and he's going, oh, I want to show you this, I want to show you that, I want to show you this, all the monks and all this stuff. He doesn't know about it, and that's why there's such a visceral reaction. And they tell him about it in Granny Exposition, gives all of this stuff.
Granny intro to the show exposition.
Yeah, literally. She gives all of this exposition in this one room, just like puts together that he's the Avatar, puts together that he's the Last Airbender, does the thing, says the whole
intro,
Earth Fire thing, like then the Fire Nation attack, that whole thing, she says it. And then they talk about it, and he deals with the fact that they all got killed and this and that, and then he goes there and he still has the Avatar state moment when he sees Gyatso's body. But it's weird in that scenario because he already knows that he died. So if you're going to have that episode in there and you're going to spend the time telling him the information, why don't you just have it happen after? I
did tell my wife that. I said, so, because as we're watching it, again, I'm sure she loved me giving my director's commentary of it while we're watching it. While we're watching it, I paused, I go, see, so this part, they didn't tell him that in the animated series. They told, because she had seen some of it, but she hadn't seen all of it. I go, they didn't tell her when they were at the Water Tribe. They told him when they arrived here, like, by the way, we have something to tell you. And they were pained to tell him. And then that shock of all of it hitting at once is pushes him over the top and everything else fine.
It seems a lot weirder that he has this Avatar state moment when he already knows.
The only reason why I was willing to let it slide was because I took it as you can sometimes know something and there's something else that makes it much more real, much more visceral. Like processing the fact that, oh my God, everybody knows dead. Everyone's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do here? I gotta figure this out. Then you get captured and everything else. You're just kind of lost in all of it, especially I would imagine, especially if you're a kid. But then to see the body of someone who, for all intents and purposes, was almost like a father figure to you.
And was just alive.
And was just alive in your mind
like 10 minutes ago.
Exactly. Then it hits. I was like, you know what? Fine.
I can understand to a degree.
But you're right, though. I think in the series, the moment hits more because it's all at once. Here, it's now, it's been kind of watered down to a degree because you got half of it at the Water Tribe and the other half now when he's seeing it. So now it's more like, okay, I guess.
Like I can see it hitting him when he sees the body and him breaking down and crying and things like that. But the shock of kind of crying, trying to cry, but the shock that sends him into the avatar state is supposed to be something huge.
Yeah.
So if it's knowledge that he already had, he doesn't have the shock of it and all that emotion's hitting at once, which sends him into the avatar state. It's essentially the equivalent of a human being just snapping.
Yeah.
And normally that doesn't happen with confirmation of information you already knew. So I think it's just like a little weird in how they presented it. In terms of the pacing of the first episode, like we were mentioning it before, I was okay with how it was paced out because I went into it understanding that we need to get through the material. I'd rather them speed it up a little bit than cut a bunch of stuff out.
Yep.
So the first episode, I finished it and I'm like, okay, we got through 3 episodes. That's fine. All the stuff we cut out was essentially like the goofing around stuff, which probably wouldn't have looked good anyway. So that's fine. There was enough character building between the characters. Sokka had his moment where he got to stand up to the Fire Nation people. I wish they had put the face paint on, but that's okay. He got to stand up to Zuko and the Fire Nation people. Aang had his moment where he got to step forward and then sneak around on the ship, which was cool. And Katara had all of her little like emotional bonding moments and this and that. A
lot less my mom's dead moments.
Yeah. And Granny Exposition got her screen time. Which is a lot more than she got in the show, I feel like. At least I just don't remember it because she wasn't Granny Exposition in the show.
In the show, Gran had a role, and they always refer her because she also gives her the necklace and talk about the importance of the necklace, which I don't think they mentioned in this series.
No.
That's a huge thing in this show.
Yeah.
That ties her to her tribe. That's part of her grandmother's. That ties her later on, spoiler, but that ties her to the Northern Water Tribe. And then there's the whole thing about trying to find it. So the necklace is a huge thing in it, but this time they didn't talk about it at all. But when they do bring Gran on, I don't want to just make it a kind of crapping on the show kind of thing, but since we're talking about things that just kind of stood out that weren't as appealing, there were a lot of really bad wigs, and Gran's was one of them. And
it's not a typical hair color for that ethnicity to have like that kind of white hair like that. And I know they were trying to be authentic with the casting, which I actually really loved, the fact that how authentic with the casting they were. But I think there was probably a little less pool to choose from when you're like, if you're trying to find Inuit representation, the actors pool's got to be relatively small. Yeah. It can't be a huge pool.
I get it. I just feel like even the quality of the wig, it's just
make it look better.
Yeah, they could have done something. But when she's doing the whole thing, I was like, okay, fine, they're going to do a lot of things. I mean, first of all, again, this woman, and I say this with all due respect because, again, this woman, however old she is, has a major acting job on a major Netflix show. She's making bank. She's good right now. I've never done anything close to that. But I felt that her acting was definitely the least desirable of what we had seen in the first episode.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was segueing into with that.
It was rough. And then to not only give her so much just exposition of it, where she's just there to kind of talk to the audience as opposed to kind of making it the story. And then on top of that, to give her the exposition of something that we've all heard as fans a million times. It comes off very wooden, very rehearsed, very, hey, you guys know this, right? And of course, but now it just comes off more like a meme.
I also honestly didn't like the Kyoshi version of it, which was the first one we hear, because if you look at the subtitles, it says Kyoshi, and she does that whole thing with it, and I wasn't a huge fan of how the narration sounded from that, because it's something so iconic. You would hear it in the beginning of every episode when you watched it, so I heard it 100 times by the end of the show. So I didn't think they stuck the landing on either representation of that set of lines. and typically Katara is
say,
the one who does it in the show.
Do you think it would have hit better in the show? And we're gonna, I definitely want to touch upon this soon. Do you think it would have been better or worse to kind of recreate that from the show exactly, where you have Katara reciting that kind of, you know, mini story of what's going on at the beginning?
I think so. I think it would have been better if you had that actress do it, because there would have been more leeway because she's a younger actress.
Yeah.
And I think it would be more authentic. She comes off as more authentic when she talks than some of the other characters. And I thought her portrayal was pretty good. I also really like Sokka's portrayal.
Sokka,
I think both of them are really well cast.
For being a non-bender, the way he freaking carries this show in the first episode alone, God bless him, man. That kid, I mean, I don't think he's a kid, he's probably like maybe early 20s or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how old he is.
But he nails the attitude of Sokka without making it so overly sarcastic it becomes annoying. He nails the, like, I have to protect my people aspect of it. He nails the big brother aspect of it. He nails so much of it, and his delivery is sincere.
And he sounds so much like Sokka.
So I think that actor and everything they're doing with him was amazing. I think he was absolutely my MVP of the first episode. The
line in episode 2 is so good that made me laugh out loud when he's talking to Suki, and she's talking about you know, how I'm a protector of the island or whatnot. Yeah. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a warrior, I'm a protector of my village. And she's like, what are you doing here? How are you protecting the village? And he's like, well, I'm, you know, I have to save the world first. And he's like, Katara, what is it again? What is it? I'm helping Aang, so I'm helping the world, and that helps the village. It was like, that was such a perfect delivery in that moment.
He was very, very good. I think he's definitely so far, he's definitely one of my favorite parts of this series because of what he's doing with his character. And again, and this is, I guess, where I'll start to lead into, but we can get into it a little bit more. With any kind of adaptation, there's always going to be the question of, do we do a one-to-one recreation, or do we just take inspiration and go our own way? And in this show,
I don't think they had the leeway to do their own
I don't think they could choose. It feels like there are certain times where, like, you know, we're going to make a sharp left because they went right and it doesn't hit the mark. And then there's certain times, no, we're going to do exactly what the show did and it doesn't hit the mark. And it's that kind of like, you got to commit to one, buddy. You got to choose one and just go with it, because right now this kind of like going back and forth and not hitting either one perfectly, not even perfect, but even like very, very well, I think is so far up to episode 2 is what is holding them back, you know. And that's why I mentioned, would have been better to have Katara, because now they are just emulating the show again. But if that was going to help, then yeah, do it. Why are you going to just throw in random Kyoshi? Why are you going to throw in random Grand reading off a card behind the camera guy's head? Like, give it something more.
You also had exposition that Katara delivers in the second episode about the prior avatars and all that kind of stuff, which she already knew, but in the show, in the Netflix show, she gets it from a book. But she delivers some of that exposition to Aang in the Southern Air Temple in the show, where she's talking about, that when they see the statues, this is the forward thing, and explaining this whole thing. And she already knew all of that information because she'd been studying bending. Like, she was obsessed with bending. So yeah, she delivers the exposition in the show, in the Netflix show too, but they make it so she didn't know that information. She gets it from the book that they're reading about Kyoshi. And that kind of takes a little bit away from the character. I don't really know why. I want to jump into Zuko and Iroh. Iroh is my favorite character from Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
I absolutely love the original portrayal, and then the guy that they had replace him, I thought did a great impression of the first guy.
Yes.
And a through line of character development throughout the show is like him having all this prestige and living on this reputation that is held really high by the Fire Nation, but he doesn't want that reputation anymore. And he wants to just kind of live a peaceful life and guide his nephew and all of that kind of stuff. And this actor's trying, but he's got probably the highest bar to live up to out of anybody in the show. And he's probably one of the more well-known actors in the show. Him, the guy who plays Zhao in the second episode, and
Johnny Gat.
Yes. They're the ones that have they're probably the biggest actors.
The well-known ones, yeah.
And he's doing a good job, I think, portraying the personality traits of Iroh. I'm a little bit mixed on the delivery because I'm just so used to the type of Iroh, how he sounded from the show, and he doesn't quite deliver things the same way, but I know he's trying, and it doesn't bother me too much. Though out of the two, let me let you address Iroh before I jump to Zuko.
Oh man. So with Iroh, like you said, he has a very, very, very high bar to live up to. Because again, think you're absolutely right. Iroh is one of the most beloved characters from the series across the fandom. Whether you're a big Fire Nation person, Water Tribe, and whatever it is, everyone, 99% of everybody, I feel like I can say, if I'm wrong, forget me, but everybody loves Iroh. They love his gentle nature. They love the fact that he actually can kick ass, which is why he's the Dragon of the West. They love the fact that he's trying for a different life and do different things, and that he
can make you cry when he sings that song.
We're not going to get to that, not yet. But he at the same time is not apologetic for what he does. And somebody was doing a rewatch of Avatar on YouTube. One of the things they mentioned is when in the animated series he sends I guess spoiler, he sends Azula a doll and he sends Zuko a knife. He's like, yes, we got these gifts when we took down the Earth Kingdom, the king, like, you're committing war crimes. And he's like, yeah, what are you gonna do? So he's like, hey, this is what I have to do, this is what we're doing, what are you gonna do? He's never like tortured about it. He's not like, I'm trying to make up for my past actions. And
he is to a degree. Later on we find, but then those are the layers that we get to, which is a wonderful thing. Like, he's like, I do what I have to do, fine, there are things that are gonna go different, but what are you gonna do? I think if things didn't turn out the way they did, then he absolutely would have done them different. He had no idea. So that time, what I'm doing is perfectly fine. Yeah, I don't think you really realize how much he's trying to atone until Tales of Ba Sing Se, which is much later on, which we won't get into too much detail. But.
And again, I think that's more so hindsight.
Yeah.
Because had things not turned out the way they did, then I don't think he would have felt that at all, period.
Yeah.
But so now the actor, he has so much to live up to, and there are flashes of when he is definitely doing it and doing it very well. Mm-hmm. But then it's like he has a wheel of how can Iroh react to this thing, and he spins the wheel in his head and he chooses the wrong one. And there's one where he's silly where he should be serious, he's overly serious when he should be lighter, then he's kind of mysterious and vague where it's like that doesn't make any sense. There was one scene where I was telling Lakota a little while ago where the
Pai Sho thing.
No, the Pai Sho one. Oh yes, you're right. Pai Sho goes, there's one avatar when there could be another. No, there can't be another. There's only one avatar.
I think he was referring to the statue.
Oh, okay,
like, he might be hanging out by the statue.
Again, I'll admit I might have missed that over my head, but I was like, no, there's only one avatar, my guy. Like I understand what he's trying to say, that they're going the wrong way, should be for something else, but I just feel like he spun the wheel and he got mysterious Iroh and it didn't hit well.
Yeah. There was the scene when he is talking to Zuko in that episode, in the second episode, when he's talking to him about like how he has to, act, and he's doing like the serious emotional thing back and forth with him, and then he just like,
oh, sticky rice.
Yeah, he just sticky rice, and it was like that was a very Iroh moment. That actually might have been directly from the show. That scene, and that was a really good moment. I really loved that moment because we talk about even in Tales of Ba Sing Se, which I won't get into the implications of. Earlier in his tale, the tale of Iroh, he's doing the thing where he's goofing around with the kids and he's running through the thing like a Scooby-Doo character and everything, and then we get emotional impact. That's what the character is. And I think there are some beats where he hits it really well, like when he's talking to Aang inside the prison cell. That was a good scene. That was a really good scene. And up until that point, I was iffy on him. His first handful of conversations with Zuko, I was like, I don't know about this. And then he had the conversation with Aang, and I was like, this is Iroh. And he would kind of bop in and out of it throughout the rest of the things that I watched.
So one thing that my wife brought up to me when we were watching it was when we're watching the first episode and Zuko sees the lights, like, that's him, and he's like, well, it could be anything else fine. She paused it and she's like, why do you think he said that? I'm like, oh, because they just said it's been 3 years, it could be, and I'm sure he's tired of stuff. She goes, he seems like the kind of guy that just wants to like chill, so maybe he fully knows it's the Avatar, but he doesn't want Zuko to find him. He's like, look, let's just enjoy this life of just sailing around, quote unquote, fighting the Avatar. Let's just not deal with that.
He wants him to let it go.
Exactly. So I was like, that's a pretty good point. I honestly just thought he was just kind of tired looking for him, because again, 3 years, like you said, you hunt down every rumor, everything else. Someone's like, whatever, you're over it. But I was like, she has a point, which is he probably knows it's very well likely the Avatar. I don't want him to go on that path because it's going to consume him. And
it didn't really come off that way in the moment, which I think was a failure on delivery. It came off as like a exasperated kind of thing.
The way I took it, she was giving it credit. Now, maybe she was more attentive to it. Maybe she picked up on it. I didn't. But I appreciate that kind of insight because, like, you know what, that would work well. If they could have just made that a little bit clearer then I think it would have hit more for the larger audience. But I thought that was a very interesting thing. Exactly. Like, you know, Iroh, he definitely has so many layers to him, and that's one of the things I do love about the series as a whole. You get to explore all these layers. Like, you know, you often forget that, yes, he's called the Dragon of the West because he's a ridiculous firebender. Like, it's in people think, oh, he's round, he's funny, he's silly, he has little quotes.
He's the second strongest firebender.
Like,
outside of the Fire Lord, he is the strongest firebender.
He would have most likely destroyed so much more had his son not died. And then he's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, one of the things I'm looking forward to for the series as a whole is, in regards to Iroh specifically, is to see how they kind of start to unravel all that he is, because again, he is one of the best characters in the series. So I am excited for that.
I do want to touch on Zuko, and I think the portrayal of Zuko is fine for what it is. My biggest problem with it is I feel like the way that he's being played, and this is nothing against acting ability, it is, I think, in hindsight that they're playing him because they know where he turns out. Spoilers if you have not seen the original source material and know what happens with Zuko. I'll see about timestamping or something so you can skip this. But in the original show, he turns into a good guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're skipping steps because the way that the actor is portraying him is that they know that he's going to be a good guy because he's very conflicted. And I'm not saying that Zuko wasn't conflicted to a degree, but he's playing him as if he's very unsure of everything he's saying, when Zuko was very much about that air of bravado. And everything was angry. Everything was like, it was false bravado. We know that, but it was that act was always happening. Even when he was talking to Iroh, he was mean to Iroh at times in the show. And he was very brash when he would say things. And every time this actor has to deliver a line, he's pained and he's emotional. And it's very like soft boy saying hard things. That's like the thing that I'm getting from every time he says a line. And I'm like, it seems like we're skipping some steps because like you're supposed to really not like Zuko in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think they're making him too sympathetic, knowing the fact that they know where he's going.
I will say that was not my take on it. That wasn't my read. You know, sorry we don't agree on everything, Jeremy. Jesus Christ. But no, I actually thought that he, in my opinion, and again, I'm just one person, he was actually hitting those points. I feel like this kind of like frustration he has comes from like the buildup of, and again, this is just my take, is he's been spending the past 3 years looking for this, and he finally there's a like a literal light at the end of this tunnel, and people want to just like continue to not take him seriously, and he's like, I'm gonna burn everything down. Like he's shaking to the point like, I need to do this so I can go the hug home. And there's everyone like, well, let's think about this. I sort of like, I don't want to hear that anymore. Even when there's at the very end of episode 2, when it's Iroh, Zhao, and Zuko's like, again, he's almost like vibrating. He's so just like, we don't need him. And I'm like, oh, of course we need your loyalty. Da, 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 da. Because the way that my interpretation was that Zuko at this stage is so, sorry to say, hot-headed at the fact that he wants to get the Avatar. He sees nothing else but that right now. I did see the kind of...
I definitely see the single-mindedness. I agree with you on the single-mindedness. I think I'm more in the facial expression that he gives him. The lines are fine.
Yeah.
And even the voice delivery is fine. I think the facial expressions are showing a character that they're trying to make you feel sympathetic about, when I don't think that you should be at that point yet.
Yes.
You don't really get there until the end of season 1, where you start to get hints of that. And I think they're just they're portraying him and framing him like he's sympathetic a little too early on.
That part I do agree with. I do think they are trying to make him sympathetic, but I took it as to make him sympathetic in the sense that he's unsure of himself because of his single-mindedness. It's blinding him to things that he should be more careful of, and that's why you have Iroh in there. And in this scene, you're right, he doesn't have that arrogance bravado. He has a bit more unsureness, not because he's going to be good, but because, you know, he's never done this before. He doesn't know what's going to happen next. He just wants to jump in, and Iroh is trying to temper him. And, you know, there's something where he's like, fine. Not because he's frustrated, because like you said, he's confused, he's unsure, and that's not something that we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing a very, very arrogant Zuko.
There's also the things like when he has the Agni Kai with Zhao, which they cut out. Unless we're going to get it in the third episode, I don't think we're going to. But he gets it before they go to Kyoshi. So if we're going to get it, they put it in a weird spot. But we haven't gotten it yet. He does the whole thing where he's like, your father would have welcomed you back without having found the Avatar if he wants you back. And he's like, no, my father will welcome me back with open arms and honor when I find the Avatar and stuff. He's very like sure of that, and whether he's subconsciously sure of it or not, but he portrays like he's very confident, like this is an honorable thing that I'm on, this is a task that has been set upon me, and I will glory and I will retake the throne. He's like, I will take my rightful place on the throne or whatever, in that thing when he exchanges with Zhao. And in this, when he says those kind of things or similar things, it's like, you don't believe what you're saying. No. Like it comes off very much like you don't believe what you're saying. He's trying to convince himself of it. Yeah. And which I think is the thing that's hitting me weird. Yeah. I'm not necessarily saying it's bad.
No, that's 100% fair. Yeah.
It doesn't come off as the way that he was portrayed in the show.
The Zuko that we know, that we're kind of expecting. No, that's definitely fair. I mean, you mentioned that he's kind of like going to come back and get his honor. They went out of their way to do the whole when the four nations were in balance thing so many times that first episode. I feel like it was like 15 times. It wasn't like 2. But they went out of the way to kind of say, because that's what's most familiar to the fans. But they don't mention the word honor once with Zuko. And I feel like that's like...
It's like his thing that he says all the time.
That and Katara talking about her dead mom. And they don't mention those. And I was like, I will say, if we're going down the route of leaning into the fan service for almost the meme of it, then do it.
He should say honor all the time. Every other sentence.
If you're not going to do like, well, that's too silly, then why do we have Gran reading off of the intro cards?
We also do have Iroh talking about tea every other sentence, so you're doing that.
Come on.
Like in the original episode, Southern Air Temple, you have the whole thing where it's like, Aang, I just don't want you to get your hopes up, and they killed my mom, and like literally, but she brings it up in the thing, but it's not like memeable like it was in the original show. Another thing that hit me a little weird is just the way that they showed the first betrayal of the Fire Lord. I guess you don't necessarily have to do it the same way they did in the show.
Sozin or
no, what? Yeah.
Johnny Kim.
What? Ozai.
Okay.
Yeah, Fire Lord Ozai. When he gets the thing and they send him the thing, and he's just standing there like reading it. When in the show, the first time they show him, he was in shadow in the fire, and they show the back of his head. Like I don't even know when the first time we see him.
I'm trying to think. I think the first time we see him, is when Zuko finally goes back after capturing the Avatar. So that's what end of season 2, I think.
Yeah, it's like a ways into the show before we actually see him like as a person and not just a shadow and fire. And I think it's weird. I know you have the actor, you want to show the actor, but you could have held off on it. You didn't need it at the end of the thing. You could have had somebody come up and read it while he's sitting in his Fire Lord thing.
Just give us that again. And so 2 points with that. One, again, either we're gonna lean into the one-for-one recreation of stuff and just, why is it a recreation of stuff and just stick to it, or do your own path, because this kind of flip-flopping back and forth but not committing, it comes off.
It comes off weird.
That's what it comes down to. So you're gonna go through certain things that are almost a shot-for-shot remake of like a fan-made service video to Avatar.
Like that discussion outside of the boat, where I'm like, that's literally like right out of the show. I don't know if it's exactly, but it seems like it's basically out of the show.
But then you're gonna go through things where it's like, well, I can only become the Avatar in the presence of their statues. Okay,
that was weird. Yeah, the whole Kyoshi thing was.
You know what? Again, because if that's how they explain why he can't do that all the time, that's fine. But commit to it. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're just gonna kind of mention it, that's fine. So when you have an actor like Daniel Day Kim who has a presence about him, they've shown his shirtless shot all over the internet a million times, so he's definitely gotten into shape for this as well. Fine, but for the sake of the intensity of the character, the mystery of the character, and everything else, could have hold off at least
in that ending scene, at least
just something. Not so he's there like
he's just a guy.
Yes. Just if you don't show like, well, this guy is pointing hair than everybody else, he must be somebody important. But as fans, we know who it is. But
when they first show him opening it, I was like, before they show his face, I was like, oh, is this like an advisor or like a vizier that's opening it up? I'm like, oh no, it's the actual guy, like actually opening his mail. But I think they could have just had his voice, a well-known voice, and had some reverb on it, or let him do it deep and be in the shadows and just have that overwhelming presence.
Exactly. Make it more of a presence. Make it more of almost like a force of fire power than an actual person. Because once you make him a person, now the air of mystery, the air of like he's more powerful than we can imagine, dies off a little bit.
you just a dude.
Because he's just a dude.
Yeah.
Now, granted, the dude is an awesome dude. I keep referring to him as Johnny Gat because that's what I know from him. I think
he's in Lost.
He's in Lost. I've never seen Lost.
I know half of it,
Lost, but I've never seen Lost. I've played a lot of Saints Row, so I know Johnny Gat. But he's a great actor, handsome guy, ridiculously fit.
Especially for his age, because he got to be getting up there at this point. But he still looks.
Call our research team.
He still looks like.
Yeah, he
put it on for this.
You know for a fact that between shots he was getting his pump on just to make sure it all shows up. Daniel Day Kim is 55. 55.
Good shape for 55.
Now 55 is definitely the new whatever people want to say it is. That's fine. But I can tell you right now,
55 is the new 20.
There are people who are 20. I, at 20, which was a very long time ago, did not look anywhere near what he looks like at 55. Now, granted, down the game has probably trainers. Trainers, so
but still, looks good.
But still, exactly. This guy's doing it. He's earning his Netflix money. But even though you want to try and capitalize on the weight and look of such a well-known actor, 1 or 2 more episodes wouldn't have killed you. Just to kind of build up the, oh my God, this guy is so powerful. Guys, well, we can't even see him.
Maybe it was in his contract or something. Because I mean, obviously they're not going to delay an entire season after casting the person to show the person. Because then you just cast a nobody and just have them do the voice or whatever. But I understand it. I just don't know like when we're going to get that shot from the trailer. Maybe it's a flashback of Zuko and him fighting. Possible.
I would imagine so, because I'm pretty sure from somebody, I was watching a video about someone who was analyzing the trailer. They do show him kind of like going full force at someone. That's where the fire splits, and they think that the top knot in one of the shots is Zuko. So I'm assuming it's a flashback to that Agni Kai. Again,
so that's probably what we're gonna get when we get like the full-on view of him. I just think it was just wonky in that moment, and I want to address a couple of things in terms of the effects.
Okay,
the effects were weird at
on
sometimes.
Your 12K TV.
Yeah, I don't have that good of a TV.
Okay,
but the effects weren't really that great. The opening thing with the fire earth, like that whole that thing, the CGI looked bad in that sequence. I almost kind of wanted them to like parchment scroll it so it was like animated instead of trying to do the CGI in that moment.
That's a good point.
The CGI did not look great. And the CGI didn't look great in a couple of moments when they had like Aang in the Avatar state and he was like moving a little bit and it looked very rubbery, like smooth.
The Avatar state when he was on the Southern Air Temple was not good. The Avatar state,
that's the worst one. Is
when he was on Kyoshi Island, looked amazing.
Yeah,
especially when it was when it was Kyoshi. And this is going to be a very, very silly kind of note, a ridiculous note, so by all means brush it off. I will say, I think it looked not as good to you, in all honesty, because you have such a good quality television. And I say because my television, even though it does 4K as well, I've told you this when we discussed it, things just don't always look as good as they should. I don't know what it is, whatever. So when I saw it, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. But then as I'm watching it here, there are certain scenes in the second episode where I'm like, it's not great. it's not as good as it could be.
I feel like it just hits certain moments where when things move, there's like this fluidity to them that doesn't represent real life. And I think that's when you start getting the wonky, like smoothness and stuff when some CGI is done. I think overall the bending was fine. The bending looked good, especially in the first scene that we get with the
first episode, the fire.
Yeah, in the dark when they're fighting the fire with the earth.
Amazing.
That was really good.
And you know what I will say in that,
I don't think it looks that good the rest of the 2 episodes that we watched. That first scene looked, and that's why it was in the dark.
Well, we haven't had any earthbenders else since then, and we haven't had any major waterbenders or anything else either. But what I will say, and actually, this is now also starting to diverge into just an Avatar discussion. So for that first scene, I think it shows that there are other bending powers which are definitely much more powerful than firebending, but they, at least in that first episode, that first scene, they showed how they're nerfed or buffed very subtly. So the earthbender, he literally makes like bullets with his earthbending, which looked amazing. He took everybody really one shot fine. But if you notice, there's a build up to it.
Yeah, he takes a while to do his thing.
So then it's like, okay, that's how you balance it out. The firebenders, they're much faster and quick and more direct with their attacks, but they're all over the place.
And they're not as strong immediately.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, you know what? That makes sense. And then even Sozin, when he's at the Southern Air Temple, he says, any other day you would have beaten us. So he
not when I have the comet.
Exactly. Yeah. He's admitting the Fire Nation army would not have beaten the Airbenders.
I don't think any of the Fire Nation people outside of Sozin would have been able to fly up there without the comet, because when they have the invasion later on, it was cool. When they have the thing where the people took over the air temple later on, I think it's season 2, and the people the Fire Nation's invading the platform, they have to take the tanks and they do the chains to get up, because most of the time firebenders can't fly.
Yeah.
It's literally a thing that just Ozai is shown doing in the show, I believe. Unless they show Roku. I don't know if they show Iroh doing it.
I know Azula kind of did it because she flies at Zuko doing it.
That's true, but it's on the ground. Yeah. Like flying up a mountain. I feel like that's pretty
like
much Fire Lord stuff.
Flying.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. They showed Aang in that one of those first scenes when he's remembering the Southern Air Temple. He's definitely flying.
Yeah, like without the glider and stuff.
Subtly gliding, but he's in the air flying. I'm like,
and controlling it.
They can't do that.
Yeah. Like, that's something I saw people complaining about on Twitter. Like, oh, they messed it up in the first scene. And I'm like,
I don't know if it's messed up, but it's not accurate to what we know the ability should be. That's one of the limits. They can't just fly.
They do show in Korra, I believe it is, during the air training for Korra, where they have that area that has like the fans that spin and you're supposed to like airbend through them, and they kind of sort of glide through them and fly through them. So I was like, well, he's in the air temple, maybe they have whatever that's manipulated so he can kind of swoosh around in it, because they don't show him doing it the rest of the time in normal places. So the only other time they show things flying is Kyoshi. They show Kyoshi doing the fire thing, shooting up into the sky. But
they did Monkey also did some show off. So I think that he has to kind of put an effort to be like, oh, look what I can do. And the rest of the thing, obviously with the series, he's not in a place to be like, let me start showing off in front of people. I was like, we gotta go. But I do think that the CGI is also hit or miss, unfortunately. You know, there
at least it's not 6 guys stomping on the ground and moving a little rock. It's instantly better than that. And I thought that first scene was really cool.
Yes, that first scene. So going back to what we had mentioned pre-spoilers, this is not a kid show. In the first, 5 minutes, you have Sozin burn a man alive, and then his burnt corpse falls to the ground. I'm like, holy crap, this can't be for kids. And okay, sure. And we're just going to go off with that. I did like, and again, on my TV it looked okay. I don't know how it looked on your TV, but I did like how when Sozin did invade the Southern Air Temple and you had Monkey Atsu doing the wind, it looks like
fire burning on the side.
Sozin just put himself on fire and just walked through it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a cool effect.
I was like, oh, that's the part that did get me excited for the series. Like, if we can take this energy, this kind of dedication, and this where we're expanding upon it because we have the ability to, let's go. And then they started kind of like that kind of flip-flopping, like, well, they didn't do the show, so we're gonna stick to this and we're gonna maybe do this, and it's like, okay, well, now we've lost our way.
I think the fire always looked good and the air looked good from what I saw for the most part. The water was a little dodgy, but it's also probably the hardest one to portray.
Yeah, and Katara's new at it.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten, I'm talking about like the CGI.
Oh.
Like it looked, for the most part, looked good, but we haven't seen earthbending in light yet. That's what the next episode 3 is Omashu, so I'm sure we'll see some earthbending. And I think the one after that, now that I'm thinking about it, was the one with the earthbending king prison where they capture them
on the ship.
Yeah, I think that's the next episode after that, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think. Do you think I should check out the episode list or things?
What, for Netflix?
Yeah.
I mean, we know what happens. I don't think so much is going to get spoiled. I know the next episode's named Amashu.
Yes, that I did see on the Avatar Netflix episode. I try to even look this up just because sometimes it is not like a spoiler for the show because we know what happens on the show, but in the order which things are. Okay, so we have episode 3 Amashu, episode 4 Into the Dark. I'm gonna guess that's gonna be the Toph one.
Okay, I feel like that's earlier than she gets introduced.
Absolutely, she doesn't get introduced till book 2, right? Didn't we establish that last time in one of our conversations?
Is she really not in season 1?
When does Toph? We are coming very unprepared. When does Toph appear Avatar?
I don't see an episode that would lend itself to
introduced in second season Avatar.
Yeah. Oh, so we're not going to see Toph this season, probably.
We do though.
Do they show her in the trailer?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we will see it. So they're gonna move forward a few things. Imprisoned is season 1, episode 6, which is the Earthbender's forced to hide his abilities. Katara convinces them to help save a man's life, and he's arrested. So I think that is the one with the Earthbender Kingdom or Earthbender prison. Episode 4 was Warriors of Kyoshi. Episode 5 was the King of Momashu. So those were the 3 episodes I was expecting to get in episode 2, was 4, 5, and 6.
Okay.
I can understand why they didn't fit it into one episode, because that probably would have been a lot.
Yeah.
Because you get Suki introduced in Kyoshi, you get Bumi introduced in Omashu. So that's 2 characters you're going to introduce that are beloved characters. So you want to spend some time on them. And I mean, I don't know if necessarily episode 6 was like a huge thing, but
I think that prison episode is one that can be put away.
Yeah.
We don't need that.
I mean, it's remembered by fans, but I don't think in terms of plot,
no,
it's not.
Again,
huge,
we're going to try and lean this out to make it as hardcore main lore heavy. We can take the part. The only thing that really changes with that one is that the young kid doesn't have a mustache. That when I see him later, he has a mustache. That's the only big difference that changes.
We could probably cut out. So episode 10 and 11 are Jet and The Great Divide. The Great Divide is universally considered probably one of the worst episodes.
I like The Great Divide.
Really?
I know everybody dislikes it. I like it. Jet, again, spoilers, I'm pretty sure is in the series.
Okay.
Because I think somebody had said, this is the actual. I feel like that's a memory I have in my head somewhere. So
I don't think we need a whole episode for him, though.
They're probably going to do a whole episode.
That's right.
But if they're smart, and
work him into something else. Work him into another plot.
Say, you know what? He'll be part of the prison episode. Boom.
Yeah.
Knock him out. We're done. And along the prison, they meet a little blind girl. And we got everybody there. So
I really don't think we do The Great Divide. That's a filler episode.
Yeah, that's no filler
But
episode.
as much as whether you like it or not, it's a filler episode.
So why do you? What I've heard, because I also I listened to the Braving the Elements Avatar podcast with Janet Varney and Dante Bosco, and they state a clear reason why people say that they don't like The Great Divide. Why don't you like The Great Divide?
I just don't think it adds very much to the plot. There's some character development for Aang when it comes to like helping people and that kind of thing, but I don't think it was necessary to have a whole episode to a side plot that doesn't really affect anything.
According to the discussion they had, one of the reasons why people don't like The Great Divide, aside from the fact that it is just filler, doesn't really add anything, doesn't really.
The other characters are annoying too. The 2 factions are annoying.
Is the fact that they say that it lends itself to the fact that Aang straight up just bold-faced lies to people, which is uncharacteristic of him as like a good kid, the Avatar. He makes up this whole thing. Oh, I knew those guys. They were my friends. They used to play a game. And they're like, oh, wow. Like, yeah, no, that was all a lie. Just to kind of just be done with these people. Like, holy shit, that's sociopathic. He's going to just manipulate people and gaslight them to change their whole culture.
I could see Sokka doing that.
Yes.
But but Aang doing it is
so a lot
weird.
of people are like, it doesn't fit his character, and they all. I mean, ultimately, I always enjoyed it just because I think it's a funny episode. I like seeing Katara and Sokka kind of be at each other. I like those crazy wasp, hornet, spider things.
It's also budget.
Yeah.
Are they going to recreate those?
Yeah. Did you see the possum bird cats in the first episode? They're in the alleyway.
No, I don't think.
When the guys running around,
them.
there's like little possum bird pigeon things on the ground, and I'm like, oh hey. And the reason why I know they're possum is one, they have the face, and 2, at some point you see one of them hanging upside down from his tail.
I know we see from the trailer, we see the star-nosed anteater thing, which looks good from the trailer at the very least. Like that character and the beast look good.
That I'm gonna try and say this as gently as possible. I can always appreciate a female character who has issues. And June, her name is June, right?
I don't remember.
I think that female character with the hair over one's eye, with the big kind of scent mole thing.
Yeah,
one of my favorite characters. Badass woman, voiced by Jennifer Hale. Amazing, just amazing. I'm very excited to see her.
And it looked good. That's all I saw, is that it looked good. I recognized the thing. I got to go and I recognized it. And it is the actress the one who? No, maybe I don't recognize the actress. I thought I did when I first saw it, but I'm excited to see that. But I also think that's season 2 too, isn't it?
Yes, because I feel like that's after Zuko and Iroh were like kicked out, and they had to like cut their hair, and then this is why he then hires that person.
No, season 1 episode Bato of the Water Tribe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's introduced in season 1.
What's her name?
June.
Hey.
You're right. So Bato of the Water Tribe is, she's in the thumbnail right here. I could have seen her, but it is episode 15 of season 1. So she is season 1. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know. So far, I kind of want to wrap up. So what do we think overall after we spoilers and everything? Pluses, minuses, quick recommendation kind of thing.
I'm gonna give it 3.5 momos out of 5.
Okay.
Which is like more than the middle, not super strong, but you know what? You can enjoy it. So definitely give it a shot.
Okay. I'm going to give it 3.75 M. Night Shyamalans out of 5.
Okay.
So it's probably, the currency exchange probably drops it down to your 3.5.
That's fair. That's fair.
So
it's not like the euro.
Yeah. So I think it's doing a decent job for what it is. I think I just saw a picture of what Boomy looks like. I don't know.
I don't want to see.
But I'm excited to see where it's going. I'm tentative. I'm interested to see how much of a pace difference we get, if we're going to get more of episode 1, or if we're going to get more of episode 2. The next episode being called Omashu makes me believe that we're going to get another full episode that is turned into another full episode, which means I think they're gonna have to cut a lot of stuff out or combine stuff, which maybe they'll do it. Yeah. I mean, maybe they'll do it. Like, if you think Northern Water Tribe normally gets 3 episodes in the show, I don't think we're getting 3 episodes in the Northern Water Tribe. No. And that's something because, well, the Waterbending Master, then Siege of the North Part 1, Siege of the North Part 2. So that's 3 episodes.
Now, but again, these episodes for Netflix, they change in the amount of time. I said that first episode, the Netflix one, was like an hour and 20 minutes, something like that?
I don't know. I think it was an hour.
It was a little bit over an hour. And I was like, this is pretty long. Yeah. And the second one was definitely 48 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can imagine them leaving the last episode to like
a little bit longer.
Exactly, a little bit longer. And then this way they can quantify squeezing those 3 episodes in. You know, you take out the filler, take out other things, maybe a much smaller, more direct thing for the princess, and just kind of be done with it.
Probably you can combine episodes 7 and 8 because that's Winter Solstice Part 1 and 2.
I mean,
probably
again, they did all of book 1 in one movie, so
not very well.
Not well, but it
we
can be done.
A montage that was basically 16 episodes,
and now this is essentially like give or take 6 movies.
Yeah, so there was only 20 episodes. I thought there was more than that. So we have some.
There's leeway to work with.
There's some leeway. There's 4 less episodes than I thought there were.
It's like what, 2.5 episodes per episode if they keep at that pace.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Take out filler ones.
I don't know. I have faith in them. I mean, early on, I got the first look of it. I thought it was really cool, and then when the original creators left, then I was like, I got really nervous, and then I started seeing more, and I was like, oh, cool. The trailers got me hyped, and this is bringing me to like even keel expectations for the rest of it. So I think you should try it. You recommended it.
Yeah.
And
whether you want momos or some lemonades.
Yeah. And if you want more of this going forward, let us know, because maybe we'll do more updates on it. Definitely, at least I think we'll do one when we're done with the show.
Exactly. One overall one.
Yeah, but we'll debate and see the reaction on whether or not you want to be updated more often than that. But I mean, I probably will blow through this show probably by the end of the weekend. So
it's a busy weekend this weekend. I don't know if I'm going to, but I'm going to try, and this way I can stay up and I'll keep up to date with you. But also, if there's any shows that you'd want us to watch, whether it's new or old, that you think that we'd enjoy, drop a comment, let us know, hit us a message on our very wonderful Twitter/X. I'm never going to call it X.
I'm never going to call it X either. Twitter's finally up and running regularly.
On the tweeties. Comment below, like, comment, subscribe, share.
Ring that bell so you know what's up.
There you
Catch you in the next one.
Take care.